if you are struggling with that, and you want that vulnerability and empathetic communication, and if you're wanting to communicate with your spouse on a deeper level and want to create that safe space, then today we're going to teach you another way of saying we need to talk. Because y'all know that's almost a trigger phrase for some of us. When your spouse says, hey, we need to talk.
It's like, oh man.
You start getting heart palpitations.
Talk about what?
You start sweating. Your knees start bouncing. It's like, we got you.
So I want to share this situation that happened with us a few years back. And I went like radio silent on Lanette. I didn't feel like talking. I didn't know what all was going on inside of me. Now, externally in our lives, things were okay. It was one of those seasons where it wasn't like, you know how sometimes you go through in your marriage because you're financially under attack, or you're dealing with grief, or, you know, one of the kids or something else. It wasn't one of those situations. The kids were good. Ministry was doing well. Our finance was okay. Everything was okay externally, but internally, I was just struggling. I could even say mentally, maybe emotionally, I was wrestling with something. And my go-to when I'm stressed is to internalize. Anybody else? I start processing and thinking very deeply. I love Strengths Finders. It's a personality assessment thing, and one of mine is focus. And so when I go into a deep thought, I literally hone in on that thing. And you said the focus on the butter in the refrigerator. This is like, I have to zone out of everything else and I can't figure out what's going on. And I couldn't articulate my experience. And so I got to a place where, hindsight, I now know that for me, this was like almost like a midlife crisis. I was going through a dark night of the soul that I couldn't quite articulate to Lanette in that moment.
And I am a fixer by nature, right? How many fixers in the room? Right? You are the person that everybody in the home goes to when there's a problem. So I'm the fixer in the room. So being on the outside of Sean's...
I saw a lot of head nodding and smiles.
Yeah.
Like the fixers in the room were like, mm-hmm. And I was like, mm-mm.
We can call it the fixer small group. So like outside of...
Fixers United.
Get some flags and t-shirt. Okay, focus. So, being on the outside of Sean's silence was a struggle, right? Because I just want to fix everything. And again, at this time, we were married for about 24, 25 years. And being married that long, I kind of know when there's tension or when just something's not right. And I wanted to kind of get back to our normal so we can get back to doing and the things that we were doing and just pretty much get back in our groove. So for me at that time, I'm like, let's talk about it so we can move on, right? So snap out of it, man, pull yourself together.
Yeah. And the more that I sensed that, the deeper into my shell I went.
It was almost like added pressure.
Yeah. And so we had a speaking engagement. So we were going to do a marriage conference in Austin. And so my sanctuary when I need to process something is the gym. So I love working out. And so I went to the gym. I put on a podcast that I was listening to, and I had one of my favorite guys. He was doing some inner healing teaching, and I just had a prompting in my head. Go to your favorite, inner healing dude and start thinking. And I was like, all right, cool. So I get on the elliptical, and so I'm on the elliptical machine, and I'm trying to zone out and get my mind right before we speak that night. And so he started teaching on this lesson, and as he described it, it was the first time I had heard somebody articulate exactly what I was thinking about. I was at a place where I had been in church for a long time, and like when people almost anticipate or long for you to just respond with small talk, I hate it. I hate small talk. And when I say small talk, I'm like, hey, how you doing today? Blessed and highly flavored. You know what I mean? It's like you got to say the same cliche over and over again. And if you say something that's authentic, it's going to freak somebody out. Mm-hmm. Like when they said, hey, how you doing today? I wanted to be like, I feel like crap and I really don't feel like praying. And I almost didn't show up today. How are you? You know what I mean?
kind of stuck like, what do I do with that?
Yeah. So when I had a few close people in the church world. And so when we would try to have these conversations, I would be honest with them. And I was like, man, I'm really struggling. And it wasn't like, hey man, let me pray with you. It'll be like, oh man, that's tough. It was just so awkward. And I was like, so I don't have anybody to talk to. And it just felt weird because from the outside, and I'm gonna be honest with you, from the outside, everything about my behavior, my mannerism, I just was tired of faking. So it looked like depression. I wasn't my normal jovial self. I'm kind of the life of the party. I walk in a room and it's like I can tell the jokes. I can turn it on. I can entertain the people. This is what I do. Been on stage since I was a kid. I can do that. So I can do it with the best of them. And I was tired of it. And so I didn't have the energy, the bandwidth to show up and be for other people what they wanted me to be. There was something in me that was longing to just keep it real. And my real in that moment was just serious, and I didn't want to laugh. So I started walking in the room and I would just be like, I'm not smiling for y'all just because you want me to. And I'm not gonna laugh at a joke if it ain't funny. If that joint don't land good, I ain't laughing this time. And I'm just gonna look at you like that was a bad joke. And you're gonna have to deal with the fact that I might boo you off the stage. Watch me. You feel me? So the longer I was this way, the more I could sense tension with her because she was like, something is off. So I took a time out. That's your first section right there in the book. I took a time out. That's page 2. I took a time out, which is where you take a pause from the problem. I took a pause from the problem. I needed time to get away from her pressure. I needed time to get away from other people. I was being triggered by people because there was something I needed to deal with internally between God and myself. And I needed a moment to get my vertical alignment before I can get this horizontal alignment.
Yeah. So what this looks like in your marriage is when you have conflict, when you have confusion, you want to step away from that particular topic and go into the presence of the Lord and process that conversation or that conflict or whatever the emotion, that high emotion that you have. Maybe it's anxiety. You want to go into the presence of the Lord and talk it out with God. This is what we tell couples because we do marriage intensives with couples. So couples we'll meet with them virtually or they'll come to our house for 2 days and we'll tell them, at this point in when we're trying to coach them, you want to dump all the negative energy that you have, everything that you want to say to your spouse, all the curse words you might want to say to your spouse that are coming in your mind, all the anxiety, all the depression, whatever you're feeling in the heat of the moment, pause and say, hey, I need a time out. Go into your prayer closet, go take a walk, go in your car. Some couples have an office at home. Go in that spot and dump all of that out on the Lord because he can take it and your spouse can't. And we have a problem, especially as Christians, just vomiting on our spouse and they're not ready for it. They're not able to process it like you're processing it. So what you want to do is go to your Heavenly Father because he knows what you're thinking. Right? And I encourage couples, man, the prayers in Psalms are raw.
Yeah, they are.
They are hard. There was one, I think it's Psalm 6, where he's talking about, I was so stressful at night that the bed was covered in my tears. That's worry. That's anguish. And sometimes when we're feeling that way, we go into the presence of the Lord like, Jehovah. God, I'm struggling today.
Meanwhile, God is reading your thoughts and God knows what's in your heart. And he's like, will you just talk to me like how you really thinking? Because I can see it anyway. You know what I mean? So we have a facade with God. And so God is like, can the authentic version of you please show up? So in the timeout, give him the raw, unfiltered you. Don't go in there and give him the prayer you think he wants. Give him the prayer that you need to pray. Because he already knows what you have need of before you ask it. So you might as well show up and be you.
Yeah.
he is touched by your infirmities.
Yeah.
And you don't have a high priest that won't empathize with you. So if you're going to go to God in prayer, be the real version of you. He can heal the real you, not the one that you want to fake and fraud with. And if you really want to be healed, the only one that'll be healed is the one that comes to confession.
That's good.
So you're going to be as sick as your secrets. So if you want to be healed, you got to take the secrets that you're hiding within, and you're too sanctified to confess, and you have to take it into the throne room and confess to God. God, I'm thinking about looking at porn again. God, I'm really struggling and I feel like slapping somebody. God, right now this kid is getting on my last nerve, and I'm glad that I have him, but right now I feel like retiring, and I need you to help me deal with this. That's the prayer that God wants. Naked.
Yeah.
And not ashamed.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, you dump all of that out on the Lord. That way, when you come to your spouse, it's an authentic conversation without all the negative vomit. I can come and talk to her without all the extra being triggered while I'm trying to talk. Trigger talks are traps. So you want to make sure that you're not being vulnerable while you're in a triggered state. Take all of the negativity, dump all of that out on God in your timeout space, and that way you're able to come back and say, all right,